Good morning, YouTube Nation. You're watching my favorite YouTube channel. I'm Chillmonger, and I'm putting on a fake good mood. I'm not in no good mood. My feed has been full of terrible things from that country we should all be boycotting. Free that country. But I'm sickened by everything over the last 2 years since the Hannibal Directive Day back in 2023. So that's where my mind is. But I figure I should go live. I should be streaming. Static Shock is a great character, and he had a season 1 of those comic books came out. I guess I'm dipping back into comic book stuff after that White Black Panther stuff. Let's talk about things we actually do enjoy and do want to support. Season 1 of DC Static returning, and yes, I'm gonna call him Static and Static Shock. In the title, it says Static Shock. Why? Because Chuck E. Cheese's was the name for 100 years. And then they're like, colloquially, it's known as Chuck E. Cheese. Let's drop the S. He is not Static. He is Static Shock. No matter what you comic book heads say. So there's a vid from my friend here. His name is Retro Reviews Comics. This was on my home screen, and even though it's a month-old video, they gave it to me. What I'm gonna do is click play and react to this dude because I've never seen him before, and I like Static Shock. If you're a fan of Static Shock, the comic book character, you're in the right place, and then maybe we can help this guy get some viewership, not plural viewership. Go ahead.
Hey yo, it's Retro. Welcome to another video.
Whoa. Normal speed.
Yeah. Y'all. So today I got a special video, as you can see by the thumbnail, talking about Static today. And I'm not talking about the original Static per se, but I did want to give a little background on Milestone Comics and everything like that. So, let's get started. If you didn't know, Milestone was created by Dennis Cowan, Dwayne McDuffie, Christopher Priest, Michael Davis, and Derek T. Dingle. This imprint was basically created to highlight minorities and predominantly Black.
Oh, God. He just said minority. Please, as a person, I don't care what you are, black, white, Asian, whatever you are, the word minority needs to be killed in our conversations, bro. But I can't even think straight. I'm not in the right mental state. Like I said before I started, if you call yourself a word that is associated with minor, like you're actually oppressing yourself with that self-deprecating language, like that term of minority to refer to people. What minority in what sense? The ethnic minority in the United States? Okay, maybe we can say that. But then use the whole thing, because you're not a minority in other continents. It's just a stupid word. Uncolonize yourself and stay woke.
Characters, and to show Black culture in a different light than it has previously been shown. Honestly, to properly contextualize this entire thing, you had to have read Dwayne McDuffie and John Paul Leon's Static, their original run on Static. And
I never read
Static by Dwayne McDuffie and John Paul Leon completely changed the game for teenage superheroes and really for Black teenage superheroes. Something that like you really did not see back in the day. Thinking about it right now, and I don't believe there were many. Static was really the first prominent Black teenage superhero, and his series was a smash hit. He was a hit character for Dwayne McDuffie and the Milestone line as a whole. If you didn't know, for some reason, been living under a rock. Spawn, the TV show that came like less than 10 years after his creation.
He started in 1993, I believe.
Static is a huge character, like genuinely one of the most important young superheroes.
I'll give you he's important and meaningful and all that stuff, but I just don't want to ever pretend like his comic book sold well. I remember looking back at the 90s. Actually, let me do it now, man. It's a live stream. We've got time. I'm going to go to comichron.com. We're going to look at monthly sales and see just how terribly that they sold, so that we can dispel any myths of how great it actually was. It wasn't. I'm going to go to April of 1997. Am I sharing? No, I'm not. Let me just put in Static, and you can see exactly how garbage this performed. It's not even on there. So let's go 1997 in January. This should work. Static issue 45, right before Near It ended. It estimated to sell 4,000 units, and that is garbage when you consider some of the top ones are X-Men with 196, and some of the mid-tier ones, like let's just go down to Daredevil and Batman had a crossover. Interesting. The regular Batman series sells 63,000. Let's skip down to some lesser known guys. All right, here's a Spider-Man team up, right? Wonder Woman, they're in the 30,000s. So we're looking at Professor X and the X-Men, of course, that book, 31,000. There's an interest in that. We got Starman from DC, which got 28,000 sales. Let's keep going down. Let's go down, deep down. Dark Horse had a comic book called Predator Kindred, 20,000 units for that second issue. Adventures of the X-Men, the 12th issue, 16,000. That's not a flagship X-Men. We passed all the flagship X-Men titles. We went all the way down to where it's only sold 4,000 units. Did I pass it? Static is at somewhere down here. There it is. Issue 45 of Static only sold 4,000 units. You can't find another DC title selling this low. That is just the reality of the situation that the Static comic book is at. I don't want to ever get it twisted or try to pretend like, the people bought it. Whatever. Nah, bro. I would tell you that the writers and artists are probably not getting paid what the other DC artists and writers are getting paid, so that you could justify keeping the book on sales on the shelves. They just skated by. And when you know that there's only 4,000 human beings in this world who are diehard, will pick up that comic book with a black character, and the threshold is above 4,000 to be staying afloat, the situation is dire for black characters in Marvel Comics, DC Comics, and everywhere else. Go ahead, man.
This all for many reasons that not really going into today. That's not really what this video is about. But unfortunately, we wouldn't really get a new Milestone comic until Static Rebirth of the Cool by Dwayne McDuffie and John Paul Leon. Yes, two legends come back to write their hit character again, and this is following or around the time the Static Shock cartoon is running, and the book is even called Static Shock Rebirth of the Cool, kind of going hand in hand with the show. And you also get to see the Static Shock costume in the comic as well, which is just very dope to see. The Static Shock Rebirth of the Cool is a phenomenal comic book, and like, if you
never checked it out,
haven't read, if you're a fan of Static Shock and you have not read that, you absolutely should. It gives you a glimpse in the past of how Static operated as well. But
here's why I will never do it, is because I won't do it. Not never, but I don't want to do it because I like canon. I like knowing that the thing that I read will be built on later and will be built on later. And right now, this version of Milestone is the canon version, and I'm not going to waste my time investing in a defunct universe. I call it wasting my time. If you feel differently, then you can enjoy comics for different reasons. Good for you. Chillmonger doesn't do that. Chillmonger waits and reads canon stuff. Like, that's the whole purpose of this stuff. I don't understand how people's brains work, where they go, oh yeah, it's gonna be a good, enjoyable story, and I'm gonna read this, and it's an anthology, and they're just, I don't know how people operate that way. You got to read stories that are canon, and if they're not canon, what are they? What's the point of us loving these big worlds, these attached universes? Canon.
Use some sort of like background for Milestone as a universe as well, and recontextualizing the character Static of Virgil Hawkins, and bringing him basically into the 2000s. Phenomenal comic book. Following the dissolution of Milestone, you would get appearances of Static here and there, because at this point Milestone will be folded into the main DC universe. You would get appearances here and there. More so, you would get like the Shadow Cabinet. If you don't know, that was kind of like the big team in Milestone. You would see the Shadow Cabinet in Dwayne McDuffie's Justice League of America run, which amazing Justice League run. Very underrated, cut very short. It's very unfortunate what happened to that series, but what Dwayne McDuffie was able to do within that time amazing, and I can only imagine how it would have been received if he got to properly end it the
That's
way
a
he
lot.
wanted to. Static would show
That's a lot with Dwayne McDuffie. You can only imagine because of this guy's untimely death, the boardrooms he would be in and the advancements he would be able to facilitate, representation in mind. Dwayne McDuffie was a huge loss.
up in Teen Titans, a couple Teen Titans comics. This was following Final Crisis, where he would join the Teen Titans team, and if it wasn't for New 52, he would have been on the Young Justice squad as well. There was going to be a new Young Justice following that Teen Titans run that was like ending after Final Crisis. He would have been a part of it. Now, following the New 52, you would get another Static Shock comic. This was written by Scott McDaniel and John Rossum. This is an 8-issue run. I'm pretty sure it got canceled after that, but I just think the sales weren't there, and I think a lot of people were just like, this isn't the Static that we recognize. Now,
the sales weren't there. I like hearing logic. Yes, speak on it. Speak on sales. No more of this opinion BS and anecdotal evidence BS. Yes, always bring it back to sales. Inform people. He's doing a good job of that, telling people what's going on. I actually would have liked to see numbers and things on screen, but like, be honest with people so that you don't mislead, and you're not selling false hope or anything. Like, this is the way to go about it.
That would basically be the last of any Milestone character. That would be the last that we see of any Milestone character. You would get to see Static and Raquel Irvin, aka Rocket, in the Young Justice TV show. I believe it was season 2 and season 3. But outside of that, and in the comics, you would see basically none of the Milestone characters whatsoever. And then,
whoever made the Young Justice show, you guys blew it. You had Static Virgil Hawkins, and for some reason you wanted to focus on Jaime Reyes more. You had a guy who had a cartoon with 4 seasons in WB about 10 years prior, and you were like, nah, let's make this new Blue Beetle guy a thing. Hey, respect to Blue Beetle, and I'm sure the reason he has a movie right now from a couple years back is due to the success of Young Justice, his appearance there, and they probably thought it was worth, like, whatever regime that was, they at least followed it through 10 years later with the movie. But that Young Justice dropped the ball when they had Static Shock under their usage. You kidding me? I would go crazier with, wait, we can have new superheroes. My first pick, Static Shock. If, they might say this guy's a Teen Titan, you can't use that guy. Static Virgil Hawkins? Yeah, he's the main character of season 3.
2020 came around. DC was doing their fandom little thing, basically like showcasing what the future of their line was going to look like, what the future of their movies even was going to look like. This was, if you had to be around for this time, this was like during COVID, where studios weren't going to cons anymore, anything like that. Cons weren't even running, so DC decided to do their own thing.
Why haven't they done that since then? Because, and this is separate from the topic, but DC can do a fandom right now if they wanted to. If they haven't done a fandom, they don't even go to Comic-Con. They didn't go last year. We have no announcement or confirmation that they'll go this year yet. James Gunn, take care of it. Why aren't they doing a big event? I remember reading that the WB and Discovery are separating 2 different companies, and maybe it's a bad time right now, but Comic-Con Hall H should be factored in to their promotion. I don't think you understand, James, how fantastic it would be to have you say something in a room of like 3,000 people, and when you say Superman will be like this, or new character like that, or in the new movie that we got announced as that, when you say that, you hear a feedback of, Ray, that you can record that. You can make that go viral. It can hit the rounds, all of the TV shows, and every pundit can say, when it was announced at Comic-Con, this happened, and you get, oh my God, so many people like it. Now, as a regular fan, as a casual, as a guy who's kind of asleep, doesn't even know it was Comic-Con, or as a guy who's like kind of a fan but not too religious with it, I look on my phone and I see, oh my God, James Gunn said the word of this superhero, Lobo. Then Jason Momoa came out. I know who Jason Momoa is. I don't know Lobo, but I know Jason Momoa. And then I heard everyone go berserk. Oh, look, he's even got a bicycle or a motorcycle. This is cool. I, the casual, have just been informed that Lobo is a big deal when he shows up in the Supergirl movie. It's so easy. They got to take advantage of these conventions. DC fandom was something. It was cool. It wasn't everything. And do a convention.
Own online, essentially like a letter to the fans and to everybody, being like, this is what we're doing, this is what you should expect coming in the next year or so. Now this whole thing doesn't even exist anymore. Fandom, I don't even think DC is doing that anymore. It was just, I'm actually shocked because I looked forward to it when it was coming out, but they don't even do it anymore. But when they were doing it, 2020 was the first one that they put out.
They did one in 2021, and both times you should not have watched it live. You should have done what I had, right? Times 2 speed over there on the side of your video, and times 2 speeded it.
And they revealed that Milestone was returning. There was going to be a free comic book day issue titled Milestone Returns. And this was essentially just like a prelude to the new Milestone line that was going to come out following this issue. And this would just give some background on some characters. You would see what's going on in the universe at this time.
And it was a bright day. Don't forget to mention that George Floyd had died, and people saw him die slowly. Something about dying slowly that makes people go, oh, wait, it isn't just the cop in a moment of time. He was forced. It was a quick decision. When you kill somebody slowly, then it goes, people signal, oh, the people in Gaza right now, they're being killed slowly, starved. Food is not allowed in. There's a freedom flotilla with aid on it and medicine, and they came over international waters. They started getting close to Gaza. The Israeli occupation forces, who have no rights to hijack that boat, pirate the boat, to take captive the many 10, maybe 11, 8, 12, the many people riding that boat. A lot of them are activists, because there was food and there was something that was going to interfere with the blockade of food that's going on in Gaza, the restriction of food. And then Israel is evil as fuck, created their own aid distribution method with their own little nonprofit charity organization so that they can control what food goes into the Gaza. There's many other, like hundreds of other people trying to get food into Gaza, and they block it. And they're like, no, use our food. By the way, to get our food, you got to go through this hoop, and this, you got to be set in this contained little area. And then people die while they're getting their food from Israel attacking them. It's the most evil thing you can boycott Israel. Nestle supports Israel. Starbucks, boycott Disney, boycott, like find a brand that is Israel funding and just don't spend your money there anymore for life. Coca-Cola, say goodbye. You don't need it anyways. Just make a decision like that. Make just one brand for me, please.
Currently, you got some glimpses at what Static was up to, Rocket and Icon were up to, Hardware. Even some characters that would come later in series that would come, like I think it was a year after the first wave of series. Now, Milestone Returns was basically a reboot of the entire Milestone universe, but I don't want to say it in the way that it kind of erased what came before. I think
it did erase. You're right to say that it did erase. None of that counts anymore, which is kind of why I'm never going to go back towards it. Rosales says that Warner Brothers Discovery just announced a company split, separating films from TV into two companies. I assume the split the debt. You know more about that than I would. I also believe plans will quickly change, and the 10-year DC plans will change soon. He actually said it was a 6-year plan. Recently, he said it was a 6-year plan. Before, he said it was a 10-year plan. Maybe that was 4 years ago now. It's going to culminate, he said, something like Avengers Endgame. Whatever, James, bro. Let's just hope your first movie does well. That's for the sake of the comic book genre, not for any other reason. I'm really not cheerleading. As a lover of comic book material, yeah, I would like and movies, I'd like for everything to be good. I'd like for John Wick's Ballerina to be good. I'd like to enjoy everything I watch, Sinners. But reality is sometimes they're not.
thing to look at this new milestone line is the fact that it's a new milestone line. It is a new take on these characters. And while I know everybody, myself included, would like to see these characters that originally appeared in the 90s come back and see how they are doing, I think this was kind of the best way to handle it, just because I'm going to be honest, you revive those version of the characters, anybody who writes them would be under the shadow of Dwayne McDuffie, of Dennis Cowan, especially
They're still under the shadow of every single prior writer.
with Dwayne McDuffie not being around anymore. Dennis Cowan is around. He's a legend. He's still drawing comics and drawing issues and covers and all that kind of stuff, but I don't know if he's as involved as he used to be back in the 90s. Christopher Priest was only around during the conception of Milestone. He did not write any comics. He was only around for the ideas that would come out.
Yeah, it's a bad week for Christopher Priest. He posted this a month ago, though. People are harsh on Christopher Priest unfairly. I'll tell you what, that line he said about don't give me the black writers, don't give me the black comic books, like you can give me all the other comic books, is not a problem to me at all. Because if you know why? Because the top 10 characters in DC are white. The top 10 DC characters and Marvel characters are white characters. When you relegate him to a black character only, and you're always giving him the black job, you're relegating him to not top tier. You know what would be best for those black characters? That they get a writer who also wrote on Spider-Man, who also wrote on Iron Man. He also was an X-Men and a Fantastic Four writer. He was also the writer for Captain America, the real one. And then you get the guy who's got all that on his resume, not to mention Guardians of the Galaxy, Daredevil, not to mention Doctor Strange, not to mention a Moon Knight comic, a Deadpool. When you got that guy who has all those names under, and he's black, and he comes to do the Black Panther franchise, then we go, okay, finally somebody qualified to do the Black Panther franchise. Hey, it turns out he's actually also black. But when you gatekeep people, I understand. And I'm sort of Christopher Priest's team right now. I'm sort of Christopher Priest's team. And if this is a major FU, and I was watching Only Comics, and I heard Mike and Adrian talking about it. Mike said it specifically, like, what's going on, Professor Phil, man? Mike was saying that if Christopher Priest was doing this as an FU, all right, you won't let me write any of the white characters or any of the big characters. Here's what I'll do with T'Challa. I'll give him a white son. Haha, what are you going to do? I can kind of go like, all right, that's kind of rebellious. I feel you. Well, I would never do that comic book storyline that kills T'Challa. I would never. That's not the white part. Fuck the white part. We can talk about the white part in a world where Chadwick Boseman didn't die in 2020 and they stopped using the character in every iteration. When we live in that world, then I'll be like, whoa, a white guy? But right now, the main issue for me is like the greatest black character that's ever happened is the Black Panther. And they promoted another character calling himself Black Panther. Like, no, T'Challa is Black Panther, and stop separating and diluting the brand. Back to you after this Christopher Priest mess. Let me rewind 5 seconds. Go.
Did not write any comics. He was only around for the ideas that would come out of Milestone, the early days of Milestone. The real thing is that a lot of the creators, a lot of the founders, they're just not around, and they're not as around as they were back in the 90s. It wouldn't have been the same. And for me, I think the best way to handle it was to take these characters and modernize them for a new age. And like the thumbnail says, this is going to be about Static. The way this new
I'm sure it was a rights issue also to modernize them.
Line modernized Static and what he kind of looks like now moving forward. Static is one of my favorite characters. I love Static. I'm gonna be honest with you, what sparked my interest into comics was Static. Static Shock, the TV show, was formative for me. It was very much like what shaped
what
me into what I would like in comics.
I agree with that. If I hear the Static intro in the middle of a movie, the one that Lil Romeo was rapping, I'm gonna cry in the movie theater. If they're like, oh no, we're trapped. No, don't worry, I called some backup. What? And then you hear fighting criminals, chasing bad guys.
comics, that young teenage superhero style, especially a cocky one who is quipping all the time. Like, obviously, like, I love a young superhero who's quipping. Like, that's my bread and butter. So that was formative for me. Static Shock, the TV show, was formative. And this, I never actually went and read the original Static comic series until like a few years ago. But what really like made me go back was this, this new modern take on the Milestone line, which
they launched like a Milestone compendium where you could get all of the old Static Shock books, all 45 issues.
Also like spawned like reprints of the Milestone comics. Not completely. We got like a compendium of Milestone comics, which was just like a giant volume of all of the issues that came out in the line. And I think there are like 3 or 4 volumes of this that's come out at the time of this recording. Also, we also got an announcement for a DC Finest Static issue, which is huge, and I hope that means that there's going to be more. This revival of Milestone, at the time, I was really happy, because like I said, you had the Milestone compendium. This meant that we were just going to get more Milestone comics being reprinted, and we were going to get more of these characters to be shown in comics. This also led to DC Universe Infinite, which is DC's like subscription like comic book app, where you're able to go on the app, subscribe, and you'd be able to read a bunch of comics digitally.
DC Universe Infinite is a fantastic service. You need to check it out if you want to be a comic book fan and you want to read everything that they've ever made on like a digital app or something. Get a free trial, check it out. If you want to get into comic book fandom that way, that's how I did it with my Marvel fandom, and it was called Marvel Unlimited for that one. Peace to show, peace to chat. What's going on, bro?
Through DC directly. This allowed for them to upload the old Milestone comics issue to issue. So you end up getting, every month they would upload like an issue or 2 of the original comics in the Milestone line. Static, Hardware, Blood Syndicate, and Icon would get like updated. They would get updated up until they actually finished the series. So you were able to go on DC UI, read those comics, also get these new Milestone comics that are coming out, and also the compendium that has come out. I will say this revival has kind of been a failure. Looking back at it 5 years later, it does seem like DC sort of failed this line. But
I swear to God, bro, it's so nice and refreshing to hear someone just be honest about that this is actually it actually has failed. The Milestone sales are so low that they've got to do things like sell compendiums and try to sell collections and use some of their old stuff rather than pay a new guy like Joe Illidge lots of money and say, go. Shadow Cabinet was only 4 issues deep. 4 issues deep. It only went 4 issues. Anyone with a brain from comic books knows that is because the first issue always sells the highest. Huge dip by the second, by the third, by the fourth. And then shops are going to say, oh, that's how many people like it. We're going to stop ordering. Or we'll order the appropriate amount. We know how many to get. That's why they only went 4 issues. The position that Static Shock is in, and the whole entire Milestone line, is in a terrible one. I think the next book what Milestone should be called Static. That should be on the title of it. Titles are important. Go ask From the World of John Wick, Ballerina. John Wick presents Ballerina. Easy. John Wick's the first word on the title. And then Ballerina comes next. Put him in the start of the trailer. Anyways, they're screwing up. They're not screwing up, not 100%. I'm not insulting the stories and its ability to keep people, but advertising-wise, they're not taking advantage of Charlemagne, who's on in front of 6 million people, who had Black Sands Entertainment talk about their comic book. And during that interview, Milestone came up. And my boy, what's his name, Emmanuel, he was very slick with it. When he kind of called them like they're controlled by DC and they got their chains and all that. He wasn't very nice to Milestone. It could have been worse. Anyways, they should promote. They need to get in front of people, do outlets, do YouTubers, make sure that people see you, make that impression. Multiple impressions are how people are going to buy your product. Milestone has a great TV show when we were all kids, and all of us are adults now with disposable income. There's no reason why there's lots of reasons why it shouldn't fail.
Modernization of Static is amazing. I genuinely, I love what they did with the character. I think that changing the way the Big Bang happened back in the 90s, what essentially happened was the police orchestrated this entire gang war between two rival gangs in Dakota City. This allowed for the police department to also experiment with their new chemical, quantum juice. Now, quantum juice is
It's happening in LA right now, isn't it?
basically what causes people to get their superpowers. Obviously, like, this was like very reflective of the times. Gang violence is still very rampant, but it's not as around now as it was back then. It was
But what is around now that is not back, that was also back then, is hiring provocateurs to justify the force that the police and the forces are going to use against the protesters. Injecting in your own shit disturbers so that the system can say, look how bad they are, so that the message that everyone's protesting over gets that part. Yeah, the message gets to be hijacked with a new narrative from the reporter, the news, police, the media, same team. Everyone's on the same pay, under the same pay. Yeah, man. Thank you to Q Hefner with a funny name, but thank you for like listening and being like, yeah, that part. Yo, I just got 13 people jump into my live stream. It was 3 people for the longest. So which DC we talking about? Hey. Shout out to everyone who just popped into this live stream. I don't know why I didn't have 13 people until now. Shadowban, who knows what it is, bro? Computer algorithm tricks. It is what it is, bro. But appreciate you guys for being with me here. I love Static more.
was only fitting. How they changed this now was the Big Bang happened during Black Lives Matter protests. For the time, I'm going to be honest.
They shouldn't be wearing the masks, to be honest. That dates it.
I still think, looking back, it was a good choice, but I think especially for the time, this was a great choice because what was going on back in 2020 was absolutely horrific. All Black Lives Matter. This was very important to me as a Black person. I loved seeing this in comics just because this was not a topic that would ever be covered in any other comic.
I was talking to Mike about this origin story, and yeah, we joked and we mentioned about how other people were mad that they're using Black Lives Matter as the origin story, and a lot of people who are angry are people who would have never supported Milestone. They never read it the first time around. But the point of him going with his weapon, Virgil Hawkins talking about, and the lesson he learns on that day is integral to his story, and it wasn't a protest for civil rights or Black lives. So they did change the character in a way that if you are a true fan of him, you have justifiable issues with him. With the direction, not with him, with the direction that they took, with the rewriting of his origin.
This was not a topic that would ever be covered in any other comic. Yeah. Some people would say, well, this should not be in comics. This is politics. Comics have always been political. Comics has always been reflective of the times of what they were coming out as. Every comic that has come out.
You just got to be tolerant of different political opinions.
Is reflective of the times. And, that's how it is. To me, this was a perfect thing to do for.
And race is not a political opinion.
This line of comics, for a line that is historically Black and historically highlighting minority characters, it was only.
Again with the minority stuff, everybody. Don't use the word minority. You are just like putting white people on a pedestal when you do that for no reason. White people can be on a pedestal. The same pedestal right next to it gets to be the Asians. Then the next pedestal over gets to be the Arab. Check myself. We're on YouTube. People are about to clip me. Did he just insult the whites? Controversy sells. I prefer the OG origins as well. The writers have to dive into social issues as comics always have. Yeah, listen, I'll dip my toes into social issues, fine. But just don't forget who the main character of your comic book is. And don't, because you got this cause that you really believe in. Like if I really believed in this Palestinians being free stuff, like I say I do. If I really believed in that and I had the chance to write the Black Panther comic book, 20 pages. Not one time will I mention Palestine. You might get a watermelon in the background because it's the colors red, black, white, green. You might get a little something like that Easter egg wise, But I know the goal is to promote T'Challa and give him a kick-ass villain, add to the mythos of the character, use things from the past, reintroduce character like Achebe, or figure out a way to build on what's existed. I got no time for my political belief, which I think everyone should be boycotting Israel, which I do. And you can boycott brands like HP, and you can boycott brands that support Israel, such as don't go to Burger King anymore or Domino's Pizza. You can avoid these brands. Shop local. Stop supporting brands that support Israel. Green Giant frozen vegetables. I found out that was a supporter of Israel. I stopped using them. I agree with that. The story should come first. Always. The story should always come first, especially when you have the responsibility of a great black character like Black Panther, who, he kind of skates around cancellation territory. We don't like to hear that. Don't waste your time with like, oh, who's also a good black character? Fucking, I don't know. Number 98 on Marvel's most important characters. It's Frenzy. Like, don't waste my time on that.
Only right. It was only fitting to do something like this. And I loved it. I genuinely love this change in origin. This would change basically how Static also gained his powers, because he was a part of the protest. And, at this time, Static is also older. He's older than what he was when in the 90s. In the 90s, he's like 14 years old. He's a young kid. Still like going through puberty. In the new Milestone line, he's about like 16, 17 years old. Like, he's past puberty and he's about to go to college. You can tell there's a little bit more maturity to him. There's a little bit more seriousness. Hormones are raging a little bit more. He's a lot more angry a lot more time. I think it was a good modernization. Now, following this revival, you would get multiple series that was reflective of the main characters of the original Milestone line, and they would all receive series titled Season 1. So you got Static, Hardware, Icon, and Rocket. Each of them, all three of these series would be Season
1 was a great idea because you could kind of test the waters and assess what's selling, who's our major character, who's not. And the writers could like wait and read each other's comic books so that when we get to Season 2, we can interconnect these stories again. While everyone's writing a comic book, it will be kind of weird. Well, you're on issue 3, so mine's going to come out in April on the 3rd week, and yours going to come out. You can kind of just step back and see. And plus, assess what are the sales like, which is the most important fact. Sales were not great because the only one who got a Season 2 was Shadows of Dakota. We didn't get a Season 2 of Icon or a Season 2 of Hardware. We got Icon versus Hardware in a comic book series. Blood Syndicate got a series and Duo got a series, but they only had one Season 1. It was just a little limited series. Bro, they got experimental. I would have made everything a Static comic book. I don't know why they were going. I don't know. Maybe they thought, we're back, bro. Black lives do matter. All right, let's get these series that are not Static, that don't have a TV show from back in 10 years ago. Let's get these series out there. Paying Jeffrey Thorne top dollar. And I'm not insulting the story or Jeffrey Thorne. I just mean to say that Static is he's Static, he's Static Shock, bro.
In ones, and they would essentially be like the first years of these characters. Hardware was a great series. I will talk about that at another time. Icon and Rocket, I was not a big fan of.
I liked Icon and Rocket more than Hardware, and Hardware was good.
Didn't read too much of it, but what I did read I wasn't a big fan of. Static, on the one hand, I was kind of mixed. I liked it a lot, and this is what I'm going to delve into later, so spoilers, but I liked it a lot, but I did think that scheduling messed it up. I do really think scheduling fucked it over quite a bit. The comics that would come afterwards would be Duo, Blood Syndicate, and then also the Shadow Cabinet, which was...
I gotta let him talk so I don't. Shadow Cabinet came way after, though, like 3 years after. Rosales says, if the social issues fits the story, there shouldn't be a problem. Maybe Static can be an anti-hero fighting a corrupt system. I also don't want to see themes of oppression, trauma, negativity. The man is keeping you down. The constant reminder that because Virgil Hawkins' skin is so dark, he's going to be treated a certain way, looked at a certain way. I need some escapism in my comic books. Not that it doesn't need to be reality-based, but goodness, do we need to have every single comic book be about a reminder of how your skin makes you the oddball? You're the oddity here. You're not normal. You're the oddball. You're the There's better words that have more syllables. You're ostracized. You're a marginalized person because can't wait to read this comic book and see a marginalized person that's going to be treated differently because of the way he looks. Not always. Can I go to space? Can we do something different? Maybe the villain could be black too. And so we don't have I'm a bit over all that stuff. When Chillmonger creates his comic book and comes here to sell it to you guys, you're gonna notice, no one's talking about their skin color in this issue. Hugh Hefner, you get that. You're very supportive today, huh? You say, I get that. And he said, that part. Yeah. It's good to have a cheerleading section.
Kind of like I will talk about that later, but this was like a where these heroes are now sort of event, basically, but it's unfortunate how that was handled. But I'll talk about that.
He was talking about Shadows of Dakota, right? Which I have right next to me. Never mind. Keep going.
Unlike Dwayne McDuffie and John Paul Leon's Static, this Static season 1 it appeared different. Not in the sense that it looked bad or was written bad, nothing like that. Static season 1 by Vita Ayala and Nicholas Draper Ivey is a really good teenage superhero comic. To me, looking at it like that makes it a lot better, just because I feel like a lot of people are going to compare it obviously to Dwayne McDuffie and John Paul Leon. How can you not? That was the first one. That was the one that everybody read. Unfortunately, getting that character out of their shadow is going to take a lot.
Not an issue. I had not one single problem with Vita Ayala's writing, because this is Dwayne McDuffie's shadow and this is TV show shadow. I went in open-minded. You can do social justice, but with a dog whistle and not a bullhorn. Yeah, so long as you're fighting the power, right? It doesn't have to be a political figure like a president. It could also be the principal. And, propaganda that happens in schools, and the way that there's over-policing could be the hall monitor. Like, you can do clever things.
But I think what Vita Ayala and Nicholas Draper Ivey did with the character is great. Building on the fact that Static is a young black teenager who is growing up in this time where he is basically targeted, publicly and openly, and he is seeing people like him targeted on social media and all that kind of stuff. Like, that shapes somebody. For me growing up, that shaped me. Like, I was also very temperamental, like, kid as well, and it reminded me a lot of myself.
Bro, shout out to YouTubers like this. I was temperamental as I was a kid. It reminded me as myself, and he'll finish the sentence. Bro, you guys know me, and by that I mean you know nothing about me. I will never come over here and open up and tell you about this was how then then the lady in my life, and then shout out to me, bro, for my secrecy. But shout out to this for the vulnerability. Come on, tell me more about yourself, sir. His name is Retro Reviews Comics.
So very temperamental, like, kid as well, and it reminded me a lot of myself. I related quite a bit to it. Static season 1 was really just like Static learning the ropes of being a superhero and also trying to tame his anger. And one of the things that I feel like I understand why people felt this Static wasn't as good, of course, is because he didn't really feel like the original Static, and I think that is understandable. I know you would want that, but I also try to contextualize it and see like what they're going for, what Vita Ayala and Nicholas Draper Ivey were really going for. They're trying to reflect the people of this time. They're trying to reflect the teenagers of this time. Static is very, like I said earlier, Static is very serious. He's very angry. He's always got his guard up. He's trying to process everything that's going on. And I think that looking at it in that light, to like personally, it was done very well, just because you kind of don't see that in any other comic. Miles Morales is the biggest.
Yeah, I can distinctly remember a moment where a character said, "Say less," and I'm like, yeah, that's how young people talk.
This, black superhero right now, but he's not really showing how America is affecting black people in America. He's not, you don't really see that. You kind of, but not as much as Static season 1 really was showing, like, how America really affects black people. And like this Static, he's not quipping, he's not joking around, he's not like as
it's hard to be funny in a comic book.
playful as the original Static was. I don't think that's to the story's detriment. I think in the context of this Static growing up the way he did, it makes a lot of sense. Whether you like it or not, that's up.
And there was no time for jokes in the story. When was supposed to joke? When Hot Streak flames up his house? Like when was the time for the jokes here? This was a serious moment. It was the origin.
Completely up to you. I cannot blame you. At the same time, I feel like it is important to have context. It's important to understand where these characters are coming from, where these creators are coming from. Simply put, Static came up in a different way, but I think it's handled perfectly. You know, the Static is still a nerd. He's, you know, he grew up watching Power Rangers. He loves anime, loves manga. Like he is literally what a teenager looks like right now. And I think that's very important. I think that's very important to contextualize and to show, because Milestone was showing what these people would look like back then, at that time that they were coming out. Back in the 90s, yes, Static looked like that. At that time, he looked like that. He was.
And now he looks like an anime artist because the guy who made it, Nicholas Draper Ivory, is an anime head. I like the way Matrix handled it in 99, and now the show Severance did a good job. It can be informative and entertaining. Even Marvel is having some problems with comedy in the MCU as well. Easy to do physical comedy, though, with movies, and you get 2 hours, you get a person who talks, you can have like fun moments. Even with music, you know, you can change the angle on something. Comedy, and the Russo brothers are good at it. Comedy could be executed easier on the movies. Writing a joke, though, dog, I don't know. When's the last time you ever cracked a smile reading a comic book? I know there's been light moments, but I never laugh. I never go, ha, oh, huh? You know, I've never made like a face or anything because I'm reading. Never laughed out loud.
He was quippy, he was playing D&D, he was writing comics. That's what people did back then when they were kids. They wanted to be comic writers because of how popular comics were. Now, like, you're going to see a completely different, you know, child. You're gonna see a completely different superhero, and I think it's very important to showcase that. I wish he did quip a lot more in this series, but I don't think that makes the series worse. Now, Static's inclusion in this new Milestone universe really shows the more street level, intimate, like, effects of the quantum juice, of the Big Bang that happened. It's showcasing how this affected not just students, but also like just like regular folk, regular people all around. People.
This was the end of the comic book when he started going, they want you to believe who gathered to protest unjust murder of black people are dangerous and anti-community. But I think you're better and smarter than that. What we are is angry. I've been told that anger is dangerous, bad, and that, sorry, my camera's in the way, and that all it leads to is trouble. But anger is just energy left unchecked. Energy left unchecked. And without purpose, anger can destroy, but we are not without purpose. If you are angry about the brutality that gets rained down on people, it's because deep down, you know it shouldn't be that way, and you want to change it. When channeled, anger can be the fuel to bring about great and positive change. It can build and protect.
That like.
When directed, anger can be revealed to be hope. Good little soliloquy. Respectfully, too many words for my liking. I like looking at art, but this with all these words on your page, just as a comic book criticizer, like if it's the only page that does this, then, you know, no big deal. No big deal at all. Is this what we want as black comic readers? Be more specific. I think the general answer to your question is good stories and not perpetuating negative themes. I think that's the general answer. And then, you know, everyone's gonna have their preferences of what's cool, what's not. Like earlier, my dude said he read Metcalf, he read Hardware, he read that better than he read Icon of Rocket. And then Chill says, I like Icon of Rocket more than I liked Hardware. But they're both okay, not super positive, not super perfect, but they're both worthy of support, I'll say. Not exactly, they're not the king of an uncolonized nation, but yeah.
Static would walk up the street and find. This was one of the most well-handled origin stories, while also like showcasing how the world is affected. The world building in this story is really good, honestly. You really do get this sense of urgency of how Dakota City was affected on a street level. You see how different students and kids were changed irreversibly by this Big Bang, and how this affects their everyday life. How this shapes Static's character and his story is also amazing. Like, Static's character does like eventually come back to what we all know and love as Static as a character. You do get to see him become more comfortable as a superhero. You do get to see how he controls his anger a lot more. Static becomes a little bit more balanced at the end of the series, and I think Draper Ivy's art is very good. This was his first official comic book, and the interiors, at sometimes you can see that it is very rough. His covers are sublime.
Listen, yeah, the interiors are rough, or however you want to say it. I thought it was great. I think, though, that because it's his first comic, and it's probably why I haven't seen him in much else, they don't get big names. They don't get. Never mind, bro. Let me lay off of Milestone like they have the budget that DC and Marvel have. Let me lay off. I mean, show it and don't tell it. Okay. That's a rule. Generally, you have to show and not tell. Is that what we want as Black comic readers? Show it and don't tell it? Yeah, but it was the speech, though. I can defend that. It was he's on his TV, he's hijacking the airwaves, and he's going, "Listen, the news is about to tell you about all these bang babies and they're rotten, but this is the truth." That was a time for telling and not showing, because they were showing us that the character Virgil Hawkins was telling Dakota in that news broadcast. Show us, make your point, give the reader a chance to make their own conclusions. If you're still talking about what we were doing earlier about social issues and everything, then social justice. But yeah, if that's what you're talking about, yeah.
Like he kills it on the covers, and you can tell that there were some issues at the time. Like, he was very vocal about the issues that he was running into with making sure that like the character looked the way he wanted it to look. He eventually got it figured out in Shadows of Dakota, and he co-wrote that series as well. That one is a little bit more polished. The story in there is a lot better. For season 1, you can tell it is a season 1, and I think for what it's going for, it's really good. But I will say, like, one of my biggest gripes with this series is the fact that like it felt like it should have came out as a complete collection already. It shouldn't have came out monthly, because as it was coming,
everything should only come out monthly as a complete collection. Monthly is basically saying we're giving you an incomplete story, and that's just become normalized.
Coming out, there were delays, and I can understand why DC was trying to go for that. They wanted to preserve like the creative teams, but at the same time, you also had a different artist take over during, I think it was like issue 3 or 4 of Static. So it's like, are you trying to make this feel more prestigious, or are you just fumbling the production time?
Fumbling the production
For this comic, this new Milestone revival was a mess. I'm going to be quite honest.
3 months in between comic books, no consistency, no momentum could be built. Dog, as a comic book writer and creator, there's a good reason why I'm not telling you about issue 1, because issue 2 isn't complete. Issue 3 hasn't been completed. Why would I sell you something when I don't have the next issue already ready to go? You have to think that way, bro. You have to anticipate rainy days and be a month ahead of time, so that should things go wrong, which things will, you're collaborating with like 5 different people: a letterer, an inker, a colorist, a writer, an artist from pencils, then the editor also, then the head of publishing, then you got to deal with DC. There's like 7 chances for something to go wrong where they will be delayed. They should not have announced Shadows of Dakota unless the artist had already completed 2 of the issues.
For what it was, I did love it. I was a huge fan of the books coming out, and I wanted them to work. Like, I really did want them to work. I'm a big fan of the Milestone universe, and I only want for these characters to be successful. But the way DC handled it was very poorly. There should not have been delays. I'm gonna be quite honest. Give these creative teams time to produce this comic. There should be no reason that a miniseries, a 6-issue series, is getting delays. That shouldn't happen. Now, like I said earlier, there would be, Shadows of Dakota, which is basically a season 2 of Static. Following the first runs of each of these titles, you would get season 2s. I think Static was the only one to really get a proper sequel. Icon and Rocket and Hardware kind of got their own sort of like crossover title, which was
So who does that say is the flagship? Static.
Icon versus Hardware, Hardware versus Icon, something like that. That was like a little crossover sequel, but they didn't each get their own season 2s. Static was the only one that sold well enough to get his own like sequel, but since then it's been 3 years and nothing since, which is unfortunate because I really like Shadows of Dakota. I feel like Static,
Has it really been that long? 3 years? Well, Shadow Cabinet happened last year.
I feel like Vita Ayala and Nick Draper Ivy really came into their own in Shadows of Dakota as far as writing this character. But yeah, it's unfortunate. I was a big fan of Static season 1. Like I said, I do think that it works a lot better in a trade. And look at this cover, bro. Nick Draper Ivy killed it on this cover. This is Under the Dust Jacket. The main cover was the issue 1 cover basically, and it came in a hardcover. The first release, I bought this immediately. I bought it in singles, and I bought the hardcover immediately once it came out. And
you have to love that support.
You know, like there's the Dust Jacket is the issue 1 cover, and then under it you have that cover, which is just amazing. Nick Draper Ivy killed it. I really was wishing for this title to be done a lot better. Not necessarily the writing, but it should have been handled better. I feel like DC really fumbled this entire Milestone line for everything to be miniseries and for it to seemingly get less issues as it went on. You know, Static I feel like got the most. Season 1 was 6 issues. Shadows of Dakota, which was season 2, that had 6 issues, and then you also had a team up with Anansi.
7 issues for Shadows of Dakota. And he has to team up with Anansi. If you're a fan of the team up with Anansi, you're at the right channel, bro. You're at the right channel. Go to my homepage and you can see me cover this in canon documentary style. The Shadows, the Static Anansi team up.
Which was this like Spider Mystic. He was from the TV show. This comic is very emblematic of the TV show. A lot of the villains are from the TV show. And
I talked to the artist Charles Stewart III, and he referenced the TV show and the Anansi character there when he was making his Anansi in the comic, creating it for the comic book.
I don't think that's a bad thing. You know, the TV show is very iconic. Like, I'm gonna play a little bit of the intro, but that TV show is amazing. I still rewatch like episodes here and there whenever I feel like it. Amazing cartoon.
How? It's not on WB or HBO Max.
But I'm not really mad at the fact that they kind of full sent on, you know, making sure that like the TV show had its like, you know, its representation in this comic. I don't think that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
You know, those characters are very, very recognizable. It would be hard not to include those characters. I'm gonna be quite honest with you. Static is one of my favorite characters, like I said at the beginning of this video, and he is a character that I have not talked about. A lot of it is because like he hasn't had much. If he had a series right now, I would have talked about it, but
hey, if that's the case, whoever this guy is, I'm gonna leave a comment and just be like, hey, let's contact each other. If you want to be like a Static guy, me and you could work together. His name is Retrospective. He has a real name, I'm sure.
I was just like going back and I was like, I never talked about quite literally the most important comic book character in my life, the most important superhero in my life. The first superhero thing that I watched was Static Shock.
Bro, I think I would love this character more than Black Panther. I think I do love this character more than I like Black Panther. But it's because of Black Panther's success and how important he is and how I know he's number 1, which makes me go, oh, that's the man. Hey, BJ Kicks. Haven't caught a stream in a minute. What's up, Joe? Well, I'm just watching this guy cover. His name is Retro Reviews Comics, and his video appeared on my home screen. And I'm like, yo, let's just listen to him talk Static. He's near the ending of it, but I'm going to reach out to him and see if we can do something together. He was talking about the compendium, and I think his collection is just like yours, you know? BJ Kicks comics are dope. So this guy will go, here's the Milestone compendium, and he'll talk about it and everything. Wow, he's got nothing on you, bro.
It's unfortunate, but I did want to cover like how this whole thing like transpired, how this whole like Milestone revival happened. I hope I did it justice. I am a big fan of Static. I love this character. I hope I steered you to read this comic because I feel like it's a really good comic. It's a really good like modern teenage superhero comic. The origin is great. The art is, especially once Nick Draper Ivy gets like into his bag. The art is phenomenal. I love the new
It
suits,
is.
and I even love like the little makeshift suit that he had. It's very reminiscent of the original Static like costume. And
On purpose.
then Shadows of Dakota is great. Like they are giving this run like also a compact edition, you know, DC's new compact edition, which is like, I think it's a smaller format. It's on newspaper. It's cheaper. It's also like $10. The season one, it's coming out in that format.
And look, if they're doing that, it's probably because they need to get their bread up so that they can pay another creator, maybe the top tier creators, hopefully, but enough so Milestone goes, okay, well, we have enough capital because we sold the compact of issues we've already created, right? Here we go. Second go around, we have a few $1,000s. We can afford to pay another writer and a new artist. But this time around, well, we're going to have a different strategy. You know, we're going to promote it differently. We're going to go on the Black Comic Lords. We're going to go on the Comics Are Dope YouTube channel. We're going to make the rounds and tell people we've got this Milestone comic because we know they watched. There were 4 million viewers a week for WB. I made up that number. It may not have been 4 million. Let me not make up numbers. But WB had a popular TV show for Static Shock. We know they're old enough to buy comic books. It's just a matter of reaching them and how we get there. So, you know, get your bread up with this little compact Milestone. Collect Static's original comic book run. You know, not this one. Not this one. Yeah, the Milestone Static. When you can do that, you can sell that. Bread up. Now it's time to promote. And I think I'm going to be a force when it comes to promoting that comic book. I can probably convince a solid 30 people in real life, like real life, to go to their shop and purchase. I can get 30 people with my platform at least. Love deep dives like this. They never do well on my channel, but I love watching them. Q says, I don't really read comics, but I like the idea of supporting Black artists and writers. See, I could get you, Q. I can get you. I can tell you, listen to Milestone. It's really important. Oh, they got the Dennis Cowan. You don't know Dennis Cowan? He's a great artist. I could probably convince a Q, a couple people to buy the comic book. And if they do, if everyone's doing their job, we might get an additional, couple thousand people, which will support the comic book and it won't go out of business and it won't not sell. We're almost near the ending of this video. Let me just let him speak.
So if you're at like your local Barnes Nobles or anything like that, go pick it up. It's going to be there. I think season 1 is still in printing, I'm pretty sure. And then you also have a DC Finest Static, which is, again, huge. I hope there are going to be more Milestone comics that get a DC Finest. But this is like just a retrospective on what happened with Milestone, what's going on with the Milestone Returns universe right now, what is going on with Static even. Nothing really, unfortunately. Like he does show up in Milestone Universe Shadow Cabinet. I will talk about that series at a later date, but more so as a review. But yeah, he is in there. You get a little glimpse. You do also get like more developments on how his character has been shaped at this point. Joseph P. Illich killed it on that series, but I'll talk about that in its own video. So yeah, like, subscribe. If you guys have read Static season 1, let me know what you guys thought about it. If you didn't like it, let me know why. I know probably it's because that it's not the same Static that you grew up reading, and that's completely fine. I love this book. I love the original Static as well. I see them both, and I think they can both coexist. I do wish the original one, is the one that we have currently, but I think that's okay. I think it's okay. I think it's fine to modernize.
He's rambling, and he's repeating himself. I'm gonna click on his thing because before I forget, what else does he do? Like, what are the videos that he does on his channel? Videos. So he does. Is it worth reading Spider-Man in 2025? Only 105 views. But his Static video got 797 views. Like I told you, it was on my home screen today, a month later. Interesting to see them promote that. Chip Zdarsky's Batman. He's reviewing that. Retro reviewing that. It's not that retro. Was it old? A year old? 2 years old? The mischaracterization of John Stewart. Retro rambles. I think his name is Retro. Anyways, though, that's this guy here. He's got a link tree. And it just opened another tab. So you can't see what I just clicked on. Let's go to his Twitter page, right? Twitter. Let's go on his Twitter and see Creator and host of Retro Reviews. That is a flag of where? Dominican? I don't know where this flag is from. I'm hovering my mouse over it and it's not showing me where this flag is from. Cuba? Anyways, this dude here. I'm going to try to reach out to him and I'll leave a comment and I'll do the things you're supposed to do. Not right now, though. Right now, I bid you adieu, bro. It's been an hour where you just kick back and you're like, oh, Chillmonger's live. Let me go watch him, talk about the Static Shock comic books and stock, and just enjoy that. I'd love to be the hub for Static. I'd love to see more things for Static related to him. Video games, cartoons, movies, if we're lucky. This is the character I would be most behind with the DC umbrella. More than Vixen, Cyborg, the other Green Lantern, and the other Green Lanterns. Static is the one, bro. Static is the one. Mr. Terrific's cool, but they casted a 40-year-old, so I'm kind of not optimistic. They casted a 40-something-year-old. You don't have long-term plans. Static is kind of, yeah. Not that I wouldn't support an Icon movie with $200 million starring Michael B. Jordan, I just mean Static's the guy. I don't really like to read comics like that. Even supporting Black. Word of mouth is always the best advertisement. Totally. Q, you were a great advertisement here. You made me, you cheered me up with all your comments today. Good to have the support, 100%. BJ Kicks, appreciate you. Appreciate comics are dope. And you guys should check out that YouTube channel. Zang Beto's over there says I prefer the OG originals as well. Rosales was in the building. And so was DJ Deuce. To any of the people watching silently, your viewership was appreciated. Thumbs me up on the way out. The next time I go live will be tomorrow. I don't know about what just yet. But, peace, love, and hair grease. Dre's in the building. Peace. Brywood. The flag is Haiti. Yeah, probably is Haiti. I think it is Haiti. It is Haiti. I said Dominican Republic. How could I be so wrong? They're so far away from each other. Peace to chill and peace to chat. Yep, yay.